Hello there viewers, and welcome to another edition of Formula One Talk, where we'll be going over the talking points of the Spanish Grand Prix that took place yesterday at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. Now, before I truly begin, I'd like to say that I am no longer reading from a script. It's too much bother to type out a script for the amount of views I'm getting. This is a slight moan on my part about the amount of views that I'm getting per video, but for less than 100 views per video, I'm not going to take the time to write a script. I'm just going to talk about the talking points of a Grand Prix. So if you hear hesitations, ums, ahs, ers, put up with it. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it's just the way I feel. You know, I'm not even getting 100 views a video. I'm averaging about 35, 40. For those individuals that do follow me, thank you. Please continue to do so, but I'm not going to spend half the night writing a script and getting the pictures ready for what you can see on screen just for 30, 40 views a time. It's not worth it. It's not worth the effort. However, I will continue to produce these videos, you know, with your nose, ers, ums, and whatever hesitations. If you don't like it, unsubscribe. It's not as if it's going to make a difference to me. So, but for those of you that continue to subscribe, I thank you very much, and just continue watching. Anyway, let's get on with the talking points of the Spanish Grand Prix. And we begin with a fantastic start again from both Ferraris. The Mercedes were on the front row. Both Mercedes locked out the front row with brilliant qualifying laps. And every team had brought upgrades. And Mercedes were hoping that their upgrades were going to keep them in the fight for the race win. But race start. Great start from Ferraris. Alonso nearly took Vettel. He started in 5th, and he almost took Vettel for 2nd place. Rosberg managed to stay in the lead, but yet again, Red Bull's Mark Webber didn't have a good start. Fell back to about 7th or 8th, and not a particularly good time to be Mark Webber at the moment. It's got to be his last season, at least with Red Bull, if not his last season, full stop. About lap 3 or lap 4, when the DRS enabled came up on screen for us fans to see, we heard a radio message to Nico Rosberg, who was trying to stay in the lead, unsuccessfully I might add, but he was trying to stay in the lead. And the radio message basically told him to conserve his tyres. Now, this was basically the story of the day. Very disappointing race for Mercedes. I'll say that first and foremost, get it out of the way. They started 1 and 2 on the grid, and Rosberg finished 6th, and Lewis Hamilton finished 12th. That is how bad the Mercedes are in race trim, and how bad the Mercedes are actually at looking after their tyres. More on that momentarily. Romain Grosjean was taken out of the race with suspension damage. However, in an interview during the race with race reporter Lee McKenzie, he said that there was no contact made and there was no malicious intent from anyone, so it was just maybe going over a curb or a difficult part of the track too quickly. His suspension failed and he was out by lap 9. Left front tyres taking an absolute pounding for everybody, and as you can see on screen there were 77 pit stops yesterday at the Spanish Grand Prix. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes' time. DRS not as effective. There were 2 DRS zones, one down the longest start-finish straight of the season, of course, and just after turn 9, where the straight isn't really long enough for it to, to be that effective. It's just not worth having the DRS open in that particular area. We did get some passing, but nowhere near as effective as normal, and of course it obviously won't be as effective next time out at Monaco, because you cannot pass at Monaco. Nico Hülkenberg was deemed to have an unsafe release in front of a Toro Rosso. We think it was Jean-Eric Vergne, because there was a bit of damage to Vergne's tyre by the end of the next lap, and he had to retire later on in the race due to safety issues. This means that Toro Rosso can change the gearbox without penalty for the next race for Jean-Eric, so we'll see what happens there. As of yet, there was a drive-through penalty for this unsafe release for Nico Hülkenberg, but as I was saying when I was actually watching this, it's unsafe releases usually are penalised by heavy fines for the team, and it just seems a little bit daft, in my opinion anyway, as a long-time fan, to penalise the driver for a team mistake. Hülkenberg had nothing to do with it. He got the green light, or the lollipop came up, which means you go. A driver's instinct is to go as soon as you see green or that lollipop out of the way, depending on how big your team's budget is, of course. Excuse me. But no, that was about it of the race. Ferrari looked competitive from the very start of the weekend. Obviously Mercedes in low fuel runs, such as qualifying, low fuel practice runs as well, were just the team to beat this weekend. Even Sebastian Vettel and the Red Bull didn't have an answer. But then again, a lot of the drivers, I'd say about 95% of the drivers, were having tyre issues because of the compounds that Pirelli had actually brought to Catalunya. There was a distinctive look to the race as tyre stop after tyre stop happened. Like I said, like you can see on the screen there, next to the picture of Lewis Hamilton there, 77 pit stops, which in a 66 lap race is averaging 3 stops per driver. When I was counting the pit stops, thanks to an F1 website I frequent after this to get my pictures from, I counted the amount of pit stops, and one driver in particular had 5 stops. It's absolutely ridiculous. As I say, just a little bit more on that in a few moments. But great day for Ferrari. First and third, I'll go over the race results in a moment or two. Bad day for Mercedes, just put simply, going backwards all day. At one point, Lewis Hamilton commented on the radio that he was being passed by Williams, and to be brutally honest about the Williams team, they are the 3rd worst team in F1 at the moment. You've got the 2 surviving newer teams in Marussia and Caterham, and then you've got the Williams team. And Maldonado was able to pass Hamilton because of the problems that Lewis was having with his tyres. It just goes to show that Red Bull's protesting over the tyres may well be justified. But just one more talking point, as there weren't that many talking points. It wasn't the most exciting race I've ever seen. It wasn't the worst race I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination, because of the amount of pit stops. It did give us something to look at. But Guido van der Garde came in for a stop. A couple of laps later his wheel fell off, as you can see in the picture there, and it just goes to show that 100% concentration is needed at all times in the race. You just can't have a bit of a relax. I mean, obviously these drivers are fit guys, they know what they're doing, they've been racing for years and years and years, some of them more years. Certain drivers are over 200 Grand Prix into their career, and you have to say that these drivers, like I say, they all know what they're doing, but there's always a problem if it's a new team or a team with not a big as budget as others, say like Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, who pump next to 10 millions, in the tens, into the sport, so they can get the absolute best personnel. The low teams, in terms of experience, that is, and ability, they have to just get who they possibly can. I mean, obviously they get the best possible candidates for the jobs that they do, but the tyre came off, and Caterham were fined something like €10,000, £8,000, something like that, as I was looking at the race news. But anyway, on to the race results. Fernando Alonso first, and a brilliant performance, quite frankly. Absolutely dominant for most of the race. Raikkonen second in Lotus. Mr. Consistency does it again. Massa third in a fantastic podium finish, his first of the season. Vettel fourth in a bit of a quiet day for Sebastian, but like everyone else, struggling with the pit stops. Mark Webber fifth, Nico Rosberg sixth, Paul di Resta yet again outshining his teammate. Paul's really coming into his own just lately. Good seventh for him. Jenson Button eighth, not bad considering he started in 14th. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Sergio Perez, his teammate, in 9th, and Daniel Ricciardo of Toro Rosso in 10th. On to the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. Vettel on 89, Raikkonen just 4 points behind now on 85. Alonso up to third on 72, great win for him, much needed for him in the championship. Lewis Hamilton fourth on 50, Felipe Massa fifth on 45, Mark Webber sixth on 42, Grosjean seventh, 26, same amount of points now as Paul di Resta, who's in 8th, Nico Rosberg 9th on 22, and Jenson Button 10th on 17. Constructor standings now, and there's only 8 placings because only 8 teams have scored points. First, a Red Bull 131, Ferrari up to second on 117, Lotus third on 111, Mercedes fourth 72, Force India fifth on 32, McLaren sixth 29, Toro Rosso seventh on 8, and Sauber have 5 points and are in 8th place. So, what conclusions can we draw from this Spanish Grand Prix? Well, the first thing that needs to be done is for Pirelli to sort their damn tyres out, because 4 stops, 3 stops per driver is absolutely ridiculous. It makes me believe that Red Bull's protesting about the tyre longevity is absolutely justified. I was thinking it was maybe the top team yet again complains that everything isn't going their way. You remember when Ferrari were being challenged by McLaren in 2003, and Williams for that matter in 2003, where things weren't exactly going Schumacher's way. They tried to get some sort of rule changed. I thought it was a little bit similar with Red Bull, but now after yesterday's Grand Prix I totally agree with them. The tyres have to be made more durable. I'm not saying one set of tyres per race like in 2005. That was just dangerous in my own personal opinion, and it stopped Raikkonen for McLaren winning the championship that year. If there were tyre changes, he would have won the championship easy, I think. But coming back to this year and this specific tyre situation in Catalunya yesterday, it's absolutely ridiculous. 77 stops, 5 stops for one driver. Most drivers did 4 stops, and Pirelli have actually come on record and saying that by the British Grand Prix the tyres will be more durable, and we can only hope that that is the case. We cannot have another race like we did yesterday, and a lot of the drivers are actually saying that as well, that we cannot have another Grand Prix where there's more than, say, 50 stops. I mean, if you think about it, 2 stops per race per driver, that's 40, that's 44, 8, it's between 50 and 60 stops, which is understandable if every driver survives towards the end of every Grand Prix. Now, we had 3 retirements yesterday, so if those drivers didn't retire, we would have had over 80 stops, maybe even over 90 stops in some cases. Mercedes need to get back to the drawing board. Ross Brawn has said that major changes need to be made to the W04. McLaren likewise, something really needs to be done there. They're just not quick enough. The car, Jenson Button says that their form is embarrassing at the moment, and to be quite honest, it quite frankly is. But those two teams need to sort things out, as do Williams. You know, Red Bull were on the back foot, but that was probably due to the track. As we know as F1 fans, it's certain tracks suit certain teams and certain cars, obviously. Mercedes didn't really have a chance yesterday. They just went backwards. And they're probably better suited to Monaco, as are Red Bull. So maybe Ferrari won't be as strong. Maybe McLaren might start to come good again. But that's about it for this edition of Formula One Talk. As for the hesitations, the ums, oohs, ahs and ers, as I say, I'm just not going to write a script for I'm getting less than 30 views a video sometimes, and it's just not worth the effort for that amount of views. I'll sit here and blab about and hesitate, think about what I'm going to say for videos like this from now on, because it's just not worth the effort sitting down for half the night writing a script and trying to write comments about what I see and how I personally see it. That's what Formula One Talk is about. It's about talking about the sport that I am most interested in this world. And as I said at the beginning, if you don't like the hesitations or you don't like the ums, oohs, ers and ahs, then I'm afraid you're just going to have to deal with it. So I thank you for watching. For those that do watch each and every time, I thank you very much for watching. What are your current thoughts on the situations at McLaren, Mercedes, and of course the tyre situation? Do you think that we should return to refuelling perhaps to make sure that these tyres can last a decent stint, rather than just 4 laps of going all out and then seeing a crash course, not crash course, but a exercise in who can make their tyres last the longest? Because at the moment that is what Formula One is all about, and it should be about racing, it should be about passing, it should quite frankly be about who's got the fastest car, not who's got the lightest car and its tyres. And that's something that Pirelli need to work on. So again, thank you for watching this edition of Formula One Talk. Next time out is Monaco, and quite frankly, it's one of those races where the occasion is better than the spectacle. So I'll see you next time for more Formula One Talk.